Maternal love is our first experience of what love feels like, and the maternal care we receive informs how we feel about ourselves throughout our lives. Mother Hunger by Kelly McDaniel.
Welcome back to In Her Image, a podcast where we are seeking and celebrating our Mother God through scripture, scholarship, the arts, and everyday life. I'm your host, Kate, and today I am joined by a new friend. Her name is Mechelle Wingle, and Mechelle reached out to us via email with an idea for a podcast, and we love it when we get those emails because we love to hear lots of different perspectives and angles on seeking and celebrating our Mother God. Mechelle is the owner and founder of the Wholeness Network, which is a wellness streaming platform and podcast. She is a life coach focused on transforming lives through education and healing. So that sounds excellent, right up our alley. So Mechelle, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here. I love what you guys do, and I just think it's so important that we have these conversations. So I'm really excited.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, we're excited to have you too. So before we dive in, I would just love to hear more about you, and I'm just learning about this Wholeness Network. What inspired that? How long has that been going on?
Well, it's an interesting thing because all of this conversation kind of works together to answer that question. Because in about 2015, things started to just fall apart. Lots of different traumas showed up, and sometimes those things lead you in different directions. And we could have a whole podcast on that and all of those kind of things. But my husband even had he was one of the early faith crisis people, and having all sorts of stress in his life, and then I had all my stresses, and only in the last few years do we kind of understand, and what's really pushed me to understand what real trauma was, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we had great success, and it was helpful to have Western medicines and those kinds of things. But I started to look at some alternative methods, and they just seem to be something that has supported myself and him in the things that we've been through. So I've been trained in a handful of modalities, and I use those to support clients in finding what I call, the Wholeness Network wholeness. Because when I realized that our wholeness is embracing all of who we are, letting, not having to cut off those pieces, but accepting all the pieces of who we are. And when we do that, we have this sense of wellness that helps us live our lives with vitality. That's what I want for my clients, is to live a life of vitality and to learn how to thrive, not just survive. So that's how it kind of came about. And, in 2015, when my mom passed away, and I was learning about all the kind of the things that happen when you move into any kind of trauma, we're going to move back into childhood. You're going to look back into childhood. And all that I learned, I realized that my mom did not have the kind of upbringing that would have helped her be the kind of mom she was. Like, she was a very exceptional mom. And I was sitting down in my living room one night, and I was just contemplating that question. I just thought it was, and when I say one night, we're talking woken up in the middle of the night, woke up in the middle of the night, just thinking about that. And I remember distinctly sitting on my couch, and just that question, like, how did you do that? And I heard clear as day this powerful, most confident, that was me. And it startled me, because I knew exactly who was saying that to me. it was me who helped your mom to help you. And I sat up really straight because I was blown away in this microsecond of time, did all of my biases about what I thought this divine mother was like, I expected the little grandma, the little woman in the temple, working at the temple. That was Heavenly Mother, right? This was not. This was powerful and confident, and in no way, she wasn't being prideful. She was just stating a fact.
Yes.
And it was really interesting. And I just sat in that moment with her, kind of really understanding how I had gotten this mother wrong, right? Like I had all the stuff I realized I had constructed about her just blew away in a moment. And I sat there for a minute and was there. And then I felt like, okay, I'm going to go to bed. And so we went up and I laid in my bed. And as I laid there, I could feel as if she was tending to every single nurturing need I wanted. I could almost feel the little blankets push underneath me. So it was the most fascinating composition of power, strength, confidence, complete empathy, complete care and nurturing. And it changed me. It changed me from that moment on, and really not just about my relationship with her, but what it means to be a woman. Really challenging those things about how I needed to show up in the world, that those were just constructs that we have created here and that they are not real. They are just, if aliens came down the planet, they would get curious and say, so let me get this straight. How come the women are kind of like this and the men are like this? There's no eternal rule that says women need to be gentle, quiet,
confrontational.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was, it just changed me, in almost a blink of an eye. And I was already on a kind of a journey to create, being in this wellness industry. But as I have learned a few years back, understanding, it all kind of fits together, but understanding my husband's journey and how this mother wound we'll talk about was really instrumental in even his faith crisis, and how we've had to look at that in a different way, and how seeing his generations affected by this mother wound, that when I read the literature, when I learn and study about trauma and about this mother wound, I can't help but correlate it along with this experience that we as women on the earth, but especially in this little kind of niche that LDS women are having, because we do get a glimpse of her, but then get it pulled away, So it's hard to say whether what's worse or, which one's worse, whether you're just never exposed to something or whether you're kind of shown it and then pulled away. But I think if we had that experience, it's kind of imagine in a human form, it's really hard to compare, but if someone was born, if their mom died in childbirth and they never knew their mom, versus a 6-7-year-old or whatever age, even when I was 40 and I lost my mom, it does something to us to lose that, to have it be obscure. And my mom particularly, she passed away, but for the 8 years before she passed away, she was in a home. And so that relationship was really difficult to have with her while she was in a home. You didn't go and lay on the couch and be like, Mom, listen to my day. It became very formal. in when I would go visit her, like as if I was going to visit somebody in the hospital. There was no, let's have long conversations. And she wasn't all the way there. Her health wasn't good enough to do it. And that's another thing too, is so when she passed away, it was really those 8 years I really mourned. It wasn't what, it was really difficult because all of a sudden those 8 years just slammed on me because it was like, oh, I haven't had this person to talk to. Going through all that I had been going through, she wasn't available to me. And it was really painful. And it really threw me for a loop because I had to confront this missing mom that I had not had, right? I had not had. And so it sent me, it kind of sent me in the direction of needing my own healing, my own work to work with that. And so when I reached out to you, I see that so similarly in what I hear many women, they don't know exactly what it is, that, they can't kind of identify with it, but, this is a wound. This is it's kind of a little dangling of a carrot and then it being pulled away, which is traumatic. It's fully traumatic. And I hope we can get a chance to talk about trauma a little bit because it's a really misunderstood concept, but it's vital to understand. As soon as you learn a little bit, like warning, as soon as you learn a little bit about trauma, you can't unsee it. And it becomes so much more of a thing in the world. It's so much more than we have given it. So
yeah, we think that, or I think for a long time, it's like you have trauma if you went to war or you were abused, but there's so much more. So yeah, that's a great lead in. What is trauma and how does it relate here?
Well, so many times we think of trauma as the traumatic event. We think of it as a traumatic event, and normally it's this catastrophic traumatic event. But really what happens is trauma is actually inside our body when there's something that happens, and what that something is relative to the individual of how that reacts. But it's something that anchors an adverse response in the body and in the nervous system. So, and then this response might be triggered. And we use that word a lot, triggered, like it's overused maybe, but it really is important to understand that smells, sights, sounds can trigger this response. And there's different levels of trauma. I kind of use the example of when someone is told they have a blood clot, it's like, we've got to get rid of that blood clot because if it goes through the heart or the brain, it's deadly. Well, trauma is kind of the same way. It runs in a different system. It runs in that nervous system. But if it hits that emotional part of us, or if it hits those thoughts, it can honestly be deadly in certain areas, in certain times. It does, if nothing else, the vitality of your life is severely punished for that trauma. And I give an example. When a few years back, I was helping my niece, she was getting married. And at the end of the night, I was with my sisters helping to clean up the whole event. So I was driving home at about 1 or 2 in the morning on the freeway. And all of a sudden I looked at my rearview mirror and there was a car so close to me and behind me. It just, I didn't see it come up. It scared me. You get that jump, right? You get that jump. Yeah. And so I luckily just slammed on the gas, kind of like, oh my gosh, move forward instead of the brake, luckily, and I could tell I was in trouble when the car sped up, pulled to the side of me and just started to play these card games with me. And it was terrifying. So we were playing back and forth, like I'd slow down and I'd speed up, I was like, what is this car going to do? And you're white knuckle gripping the steering wheel. And all of a sudden and I was in the HOV lane, so clear on the left lane. the freeway was empty. There was plenty of room to get around me, but finally he just reached over, or they just screeched over off the exit and was gone. And so I'm left there, heart pounding. So I go home, and it was like telling my husband, I'm like, this has just happened. Like, that was so scary. You're like, like you do. Well, I told my husband, I says, I think I need to go drive that route again. There was this piece of me that felt like I need to go drive that route again. I had some trauma training because I'm like, I know that I don't want anything to come up. But we got busy, things moved on, and I just went on my way. Well, the next year, I opened up my Instagram, and there's happy first wedding anniversary. And my body froze, and it's almost like I started sweating all over my body, and I knew I was having a trauma response.
Wow.
And so do you see how that little piece of electricity or energy or whatever that was living in my body got ignited, and I had a response? And I think what happens is, if I had not done anything, I could have just sat. I could have gone through my day. I went immediately and got help from my people, that take care of me. But if I hadn't, I would usually maybe watch a show or eat something to distract myself. I think that's, I could manage it, but I really think that many of us are managing these kinds of traumas all the time. And I think it causes a lot of problems. I know it does. And I could talk so long about trauma, but we all have days. Think about this. We all have days that hit us pretty hard. And so maybe we show up one day, you wake up that morning and you're just in a bad mood, or something happens halfway through the day and you just get so ornery, you're just in a bad mood. Or maybe you wake up and you're those days where you just cannot be around other people. I can't be around other people. I gotta be alone. Or there's those days where your energy is just it's gone. It's just, I can't function. Nothing's getting done. And it's just, and we kind of just move through those days. Or even better, sometimes you wake up and it's you feel something. I know we women do this all the time. And then our immediate answer is, I got to go serve someone. I've heard that so many times. I got to go serve someone. And I don't know, but these are the trauma responses: fight, which is an anger response; flight, which is, check out, don't be around people; freeze, which is another version of check out, but it's more like a frozen; or appease is another trauma response. And it's really important to understand how trauma shows up in your body so that you can address those things, because you can get rid of it for the first time and the second time, but pretty soon we're in full response mode and we don't have a connection to what the real trauma, the real traumatic event really was. And it's really, we talk about somebody that's traumatized and we think of them as being this scared, kind of trembling person, but it's not scared. It's what's happened when we have a trauma is we're actually rewiring or wiring the brain to function differently. And that's what trauma really is. It changes who you are. And the other important thing to know about trauma, and then we can talk about something else, is that trauma can result, this is really important, there's no difference between a trauma that happened and a trauma that did not happen. For example, let's say a woman, in this context, a woman's standing at the stove, stirring dinner, and her husband comes in, grumbles past him, past her, doesn't say anything. There's no emotional support. There's no connection back and forth. He just goes and sits down on the chair. Now, that was very, very different from an abusive husband that comes in and maybe would hit her. But her nervous system could register those the very same. Like that, because what didn't happen was a connection. What didn't happen was her being seen and heard. And we have those all the time. And so as we think about that, I just, in this conversation specifically, what didn't happen can be a trauma, then no representation is also a trauma. What we didn't get as women is a model in which we begin to form ourselves into. We have no ability to formulate this divine self with no representation. Or like I say, even better yet, like here's a word about it and then take it away. For me, I can only see how that could show up for a lot of women, maybe not all women, but for a lot of women as a trauma.
I think that's such a great example because, I think of, MacArthur Krishna, who's written books of, Girl's Guide and Boy's Guide to Heavenly Mother. She's, along with others, not just her, but she was sharing, after Elder Renlund's talk in the spring, that there are many members of the church in countries, probably both inside and outside the United States, but she was talking about outside of the United States, where the concept, the idea of a Heavenly Mother was 100% new to them. And so, and she was speaking of it in terms of like, that's a win right there that an apostle spoke of her. But it's the, like you said, it can register the same. We're all having a different experience, whether we grew up knowing that there was a Heavenly Mother, but being given this idea that she's just in the background, she's being protected, she's fragile, and she's not really involved in your life and shouldn't be spoken to, or like being raised with a single father and not even knowing that you had a mom, and then learning that you did.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. When you look at it on a physical temporal scale, it's horrifying. But our body, and that's what I'm saying, our bodies are temporal and physical. So they're going to react temporally and physically to this trauma, I would say. And without that representation, then like you say, we get a stereotype of quiet, and this is another thing is then this is so important because when we only have a stereotype, then that's the type that's created and that we feel like we have to model and conform to. Right? That's the example, right? How would we not think that way? Or what humans do is they will either fight against it and do the opposite. So then you become either conforming or completely, contradictory, which I would say neither of those are a real adequate use of agency. I feel like our agency, if we got these two choices, either I be against or I be like, where is my personal agency able to make a choice there? Where do I, as a divine being of a pedigree of one in my spirit, I have one direct line on my spiritual pedigree chart. How am I supposed to be me when I've just given these two, I either am rebellious or I conform? There's just no agency there. And
there's no intuition.
There's no room for your or my uniqueness. It's just, which goes against the very definition of eternal, of infinite, of expansive, of even this notion of God, all knowing, all, this, to me, those words are so big and huge and never ending. And then we just want to bring it down to one little pinpoint and say, this is the way we're supposed to be. And, it's true. It's just true that how people are depicted. So even little kids watching shows on TV, how those things are depicted is how we will see ourselves and the possibilities we have to aspire to. I mean, that's just what we have. And so I really hope that people, and please, gentlemen, to really just think about what that would be like to have this being that you're aspired to be something that's a little nervous, makes everybody just a little nervous. Everything just becomes a little uncomfortable when we talk about her. Like, how would we not internalize that? There's just no way.
And be afraid of ourselves.
100%. 100%. And to even take it a little further, through with working with my husband and his traumatic childhood of, he had childhood emotional neglect. He was fed properly. He was clothed properly, but there wasn't this attunement that was, and his mom didn't have those things either. So we've got generations of this going on. And so I hope that he's working on, and he is being the chain breaker of this, but it's the idea that in the last few years of understanding what this mother hunger that we talk about, this book, there's a mother hunger book, and what that really does to humans has really kind of punched me in the gut when I think about it through this lens of this non-mothering. And if you go online, I sent to you, and I hope people will go online and just go to YouTube and just put in the still face experiment. And
yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Great.
I want to talk about that. So I watched
what did you
video,
think?
And I'll describe it for our listeners, but it'd be great it's only a few minutes long. But they have a mother come in with a 1-year-old and engage with the one, there's communication, there's tickling, there's kind of a game and chatting back and forth with this little baby. And the baby's clearly happy, enjoying it. And then the mother is instructed to just give a still face, just not respond. Mm-mm. She's not being mean. She's not being angry or anything. It's just a blank stare as the child tries desperately to get her to engage again. And pretty soon the child gets very frustrated, very fussy, upset, and arching their back, having these reactions. So
yeah, in pain, like the baby is in pain. Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual pain is what that baby is in.
Yeah, and it's like when I watched it, I mean, I could have predicted that. I feel like I have young children. I feel like my kids do that to each other sometimes. My older son does that to his sister. He just like stares at her and she gets so mad.
And that's what I say, like the biological response. Like she's not sitting there going through this cognitive thought process of like, I wonder if he's mad. Right. I wonder what could be the problem. It is an automatic biological response that we have.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, the way you're looking at her.
We've all heard that. He's looking at me, right? Yes, that's what it is. Yes. It's uncomfortable. To the other person, it feels threatening, painful. It feels disconnecting, which is like Brené Brown says, we are wired for connection. We are meant to be connected. So that disconnection. So one thing that's interesting about that experiment is that they've since redone it. I mean, I think they initially did it like in the 60s, and it's been repeated over and over again. But they went and did it on another level, and they took the same exact experiment, but they had the baby and the mom in different rooms, and they were interacting over like the like the Zoom, like what we're doing. And then, and it worked. They were playing and having this fun. And then all they did was just play back the video. So the mom still animated and everything, but it's a rewind of what just happened. Same result.
Wow.
Same result.
They could tell that there wasn't a real...
Right. That connection was not there. And even a baby, like a 1-year-old baby, knows when they are not in connection. And so what happens when we don't have that connection, then we have to do something about that discomfort. I mean, if that baby... So I just started last month. I just started a once a month. I call it a mommy and Mish hour. It's like a lunch that I provide for any moms that want to come and be part of. It's on the Wholeness Network. Because of all this information and how important I think moms need to be supported. Moms need to have, I feel like ever since I've learned all this stuff, I'm like, whatever we can do as a society to support moms and give them all the support that they need. I could only imagine how society would change if people got the mothering they needed, mothering meaning it doesn't have to be female, just insert that, but get the mothering they needed, and the moms got the support that they needed. So I'm trying to put my words where, and try and show up for moms. Yeah, my money where my mouth is, whatever that's called, and say, I will be here, and so my hope is to kind of teach people about some of these things, because I didn't know those. If I could go back, my youngest is 17. Mm-hmm. If I could go back, I mean, the things that I've learned, there's no such thing as a spoiled baby. They don't learn to soothe themselves. They give up. They don't have a cognitive ability to say, it's okay, I'm okay, I can live without my mom. They can't. They're having, their biology's running the show. And if I could go, but I was in the age of, don't spoil them or whatever. And I could never just let my baby cry all night long, but I felt guilty about it, right? I mean, I felt like I was doing something wrong when I would go in and pick up the baby, oh, this might go on forever. I'll tell you what, moms, I have 4 kids and my youngest is 17. They all eventually slept normal.
Yeah.
They're not going to be 8 years old and up all night. It's just not going to happen. And we want structure and those kind of things. So those are important. But I just really have a lot of sorrow for, again, this, the representation was just, most of the ways we learned how to mother were from doctors that were men.
Yeah.
So just these connections that we have is super important. So when I say that, there's this little carrot that's dangling, that's a bid for connection. And then when it's taken away, it's painful. And I think a lot of women are feeling that pain. And with that example of the woman and her husband coming in, it's really difficult because there's nowhere really to put the finger for the pain. You can't point the finger quite at it because it's what wasn't there. It's not what was there.
Right.
So many times we as women point the finger at ourselves. And, just another way of seeing it is, PTSD is when we have a traumatic event that happens and it disrupts our nervous system. There's a thing called CPTSD, which is it's complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. So when you have complex, there is no one event. It was either just the way it always was, or it happened over so many times. And so the nervous system becomes built upon the scaffolding of the stress. And so the stress becomes, it's like normal is elevated. So we have a lot of ADHD and things and things like that are the brain wired for a higher temperature, running at a higher temperature, And who knows if these all connect to this. I don't want to say that this is all the problem, but it's these kinds of unknowns, these kinds of misunderstandings that I think call it. And so CPTSD, there's a book called Complex CPTSD or PTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. He's a fantastic a man with a few books, but he says it's a severe form of post-traumatic stress syndrome, the CPTSD. It is delineated from this better known trauma syndrome by 5 most common troublesome features. So these are what show up in CPTSD. Number 1, emotional flashbacks. 2, toxic shame. 3, self-abandonment. 4, a vicious inner critic. And 5, social anxiety. And,
wow.
And maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places, but I see that in women a lot. That inner critic, that, maybe we might think of social anxiety as like not wanting to be in society, but I think it's also more like society makes us anxious because the expectation of what we were supposed to show up in as society, there's some anxiety there. The wellness industry, the dieting industry, all those things are very well equipped to help us with that anxiety, right? That self-abandonment, even in myself, how many times do I don't know, what do you want, right? Like, I don't know, like how difficult is it for me to even just have an opinion about something without making sure I say it in the right way to not offend everybody. And I don't want to offend people, but there's more to it. You know what I mean? There's more to it. And
yeah, when you read that list, I said, wow, because I just feel like all of those are very prevalent.
Right.
In men and women.
Right.
That I know.
Right. And brings up a good point. Women are not the only ones suffering from a mother hunger, from a heavenly mother hunger, right?
Yeah.
We all have this, like I can't stress it enough, this little taste of it, but no, and I think that, like, if you think about, like, just to kind of bring up the point about mothering and fathering, and leaving gender out of it, we don't have to go there, but mothering is a verb, right? Mothering is a verb.
Yeah.
And in fact, in the book, Mother Hunger, she says, an adult with the desire, ability, and willingness to nurture, protect, and guide a child can be a mother. So those 3 things are really important: nurture, protect, and guide. So let's look at, like, a dad's way of nurturing is to provide. They provide. That's the way they nurture. And these are stereotypes, but, most likely the fathering usually does the providing.
Yeah.
Where a mom's nurturing is usually touch and empathy, just a different flavor than the males, which is fine. But we need both. Protector. If you think about a male way, the stereotypical male way,
masculine way,
that's a good word to say. If danger was coming at me, usually the male will, go like this and protect. He'll stand in the way and turn toward the offender and fight. Where a female will turn, usually the feminine idea will turn and protect, cover, shield, turn toward the child. And even just there, you can feel, you need both, right? But very big difference in how you feel as that little child. It would feel really nice to have arms around you, covering you up and making you feel like everything's going to be okay. And guidance, that third one, guidance. Dad's way of guiding is usually through advice and storytelling and words. And moms usually listen. Their guidance is a lot of listening and really seeing the inner parts of their children. They kind of see them in a different way. And so, yes, this is talking about, like, again, temporal physical experiences. But I don't think it's too far to kind of put that in a perspective of what we think about a Heavenly Father. You know, do we think about a Heavenly Father as a nurturing touch person? You know, this touch, empathetic. You know, when I had my experience, it was just wild how it's really hard to explain how she could think of every detail. Like, oh, you probably need a little pillow there. Oh, you know, and that just was like, how do you know? Like, I didn't even have to think for myself. She knew exactly how to like tuck me in. That's the only way I can put about it. And that was so feminine and so nurturing. I loved it.
I love that too. And as you were describing these roles, this masculine and feminine, it kind of came to my mind that like for a long time, and I think, you know, probably for many people still, Jesus fills sort of that feminine role. It's like we have God the Father who's there to give the commandments and who loves us, but mostly provides a lot of structure for us.
Right.
And then there's Jesus who comes and he listens and he weeps with us and he holds us. And, you know, and the way I interpret that is just that Jesus was part of this perfect embodiment of feminine and masculine God.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I also see Mary Magdalene. And,
Yep.
we could go off on that.
Yep. I love it.
But yeah, I think that we all crave that mothering, and that in many ways, that's why many people, including myself, have connected with Christ as this God that weeps. And then it's like, for me, it's just like I opened my eyes a little bit wider and could see the source of that, of Jesus' ability to mother us, and how Jesus has been likened to a mother hen, you know, protecting her chicks or giving birth to us.
Yes.
You know, throughout the scriptures. So yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I just think like, wow, if we could just all, like you said, like zoom out to this wholeness and see how both are needed and how Christ may have come, you know, in part to show us show us the other face of God. And so we could add them all together.
Yes. I love that. I think that's so profound. And, you know, what's interesting, I am in the world of, you know, holistic things. So I use a lot of essential oils. And one thing that was really interesting is the oils of frankincense and myrrh. Did you know that the frankincense is the masculine and the myrrh is the feminine?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And so think about that gift of masculinity, femininity, and gold. You know, and just, if you just sit there and like think for a minute on all the symbolisms of those two things and how we need to, you know, we could just go there for days on all those possibilities. And I like to do that kind of thing, and just, because I didn't know that, but those oils were used for those mothering and fathering. That was the gift, you know, that was given to him. I don't think it was just an accident.
Yeah. So interesting, because I'm a little bit familiar with essential oils as well. And that is one thing when a baby still has a little bit of the umbilical cord attached. And when it's, you know, it can take a while to dry up and fall off. But I was told, like, if you put a little bit of myrrh essential oil on the umbilical cord, that it actually helps it quite a bit and it heals very quickly. And I did it with my kids, and it really did. Like, they did not get a really bad wound. It didn't get infected, and it fell off quickly. So anyway, that's. Do
you know, when you say that, I just picture this. What it does, it nurtures the connection and lets the connection remain in a way, you know, because that's what it was. It was the connection for a period in our existence where we were fully nurtured and fed,
and one.
Yes, and one. Yes. Yes. That's like just magical to think that I mean, it's like, why aren't women put up on these pedestals? I mean, that's pretty amazing. Like, that is really amazing. Oh my gosh. But some of the things in the book, so Mother Hunger, we came across, and it's usually written to women, but my husband actually got it for himself, and I think he's devoured it several times, and just really can identify with a lot of it. And it's just this idea that we're hungering for this relationship, and when we don't get it, how it is painful. So there's a couple quotes from the book. She says, injury aptly describes mother hunger because living with it hurts all the time. It's like grief, complicated grief that comes from carrying an unacknowledged, invisible burden all by yourself. And when I read that, I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel, with this, it's like I don't spend a lot of time on this emptiness I have with, Heavenly Mother. I think you probably have more than me, and that's why you're called to do this work. So you've probably felt that pain acutely, and it propelled you to move forward and do something with it. And that's super beautiful, and we're all grateful and blessed for that. But I know that if I spent any time really letting myself feel that, it wouldn't take too long before, already right now I can just feel the pit in my stomach form. Just that pain, that emptiness that I can't quite put words to, because I have none that were given to me, right? I have no words given to me. But and I just worry that women are, having to manage that pit in their stomach and kind of move their life around it, when I just feel like there's no need. There's no need for that kind of pain anymore. I think we can handle the idea of a divine mother. I don't think we're going to overuse it. I don't think we're going to hurt it. From my experience, she can take it. I'm like, she is not too tender to be loved. Right. And who is, first of all, who is? But
yeah, oh wow, the way you put that there's a pit, there's a pain that many of us, I think many women and men just try to work their life around, because there's no words for it, because there's no allowance for it. And like you said, for Jess and I and many of our friends, the antidote is to just take it back, is to stop waiting for someone to give us the words for it. And when, excuse me, the first book that I read that began my dive into this was Mother's Milk by Rachel Hunt Steenflick.
Ooh.
It's a book of poetry. They're just little poems, tons of little, like 5-line poems that she wrote, I think in pregnancy and in the first year of her daughter's life. And one of them that, I don't know, it was like, it struck a nerve where I was like, oh, I was excited to learn about Heavenly Mother. I did not know that I was going to experience pain. And the first half of the book kind of is, it's called, what is it called? I think it's called The Hunger.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called The Hunger. This is, I think, the first poem that she wrote about Heavenly Mother. She said, it's called Motherless Milk. And I just feel like reading it because I think because it made me cry. I searched for my mother the way a baby roots for her mother's breast, head nuzzling from side to side, mouth open, ready to suckle. But I was still thirsty. Then my belly grew, and my breast grew, and a ravenous little thing came out. I offer her my milk without money and without price. My husband offered it to her once while I sat beside them on a train. She pursed her lips against the false nipple and stared at me with sad eyes. I wondered then if Heavenly Mother walked into another room so we would take the bottle. I wondered then if we are weaned. 2.5 years ago when I read that, it's like I didn't even understand it, but I just wept.
Yes.
Thinking about being weaned. And at the time I was breastfeeding my newborn.
Oh, wow.
Girl.
Yeah.
And just
yeah. Oh,
just that feeling of being weaned.
Yeah.
When you wean a child from breastfeeding, or, they can really be upset. It can be painful for both of you.
Yes. Yeah. When you were reading that, and all of a sudden the weaned, like, I could feel it in my, you feel it in your soul. This no, I'm not ready. I don't want to. I didn't get a chance. I haven't got a chance yet to be with you, to be nourished in that way. And that's the thing. It's nourishment, and we need to be nourished in order to survive. And I think spiritually, we need that nourishment of her because we are women. It's fantastic that we have a father. I am thrilled that we have a father. But as a woman, it means something to be nurtured by and have an example for a woman. And when we don't, my hypothesis is that we carry a trauma, and that it affects our well-being. It affects our ability to be moms. It affects our ability to have agency. It affects all of who we are. And we just have to hold that for a minute and recognize that that's happening and happened. And then maybe we just get curious with what we do next. I don't know exactly what to do next. I don't know if it needs to be prescriptive. I think maybe that's the beauty of this obscurity that we have, but we need to be able to use that obscurity in the ways that benefit us on an individual basis, on individual experiences. So in reverence for that talk that we talk about, I will say, I have to figure out for myself what that means, and then not give judgment to how somebody else received that, and just be with myself and hold that reverence within myself, and give myself the permission that I need to feel that space, to bring into my wholeness that part that's missing, that part that's hurting, needs a healing balm. And if that's it, I think it's okay to do that. It's okay to do that.
I'm curious. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. I'm curious, in this book, Mother Hunger, what I'm guessing that the book is written about, actual mothering, not actual, I should say, earthly mothering. Both are actual, but what is her solution? How do we deal with this on earth if we've had a mother that's either absent or emotionally absent? And maybe we can pull from that.
Yeah.
What can we do?
Yeah. So it becomes important to, number one, we have to feel the hunger. We have to name it. We have to know that it's been missing, and understand within ourselves what parts are painful for us. That might be different for individual people. We've got to understand that and look at that. And it's really hard to do. That bond makes it really difficult for people. In fact, when they've found that, instead of taking children away from their parents, they actually will do better. It's less traumatic for them to be with a parent who's fully on drugs and those kind of things, because that bond, that connection is so important. It's kind of like when they take them away, it's got to be a really, really, really important need because you're inflicting a wound while you're trying to prevent one. You're perfect. So you're doing that. So to really understand what your pains are, what that means for you, and then we have to go within. I mean, in her book, you go in and you mother yourself. You do some internal work, and that's what I mean by, I can go in and have experiences within myself with this mother, and that's exactly what you do to heal the earthly mother hunger. You nurture and support what they call your inner child, and for as long as it takes and as much as you need and however that looks. And I think that for now, until we get the go ahead, that's all that we've got. And, and I think it needs to start. I think we can all do that, I think, and live within the parameters and be fine, but I think we can do that within ourselves, those experiences. And I even, I want to go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I want to add to that, that part of the patriarchal world that we live in, I think we ask, mothers and women to do it on our own.
Yes.
A lot. And we were always meant to live in community.
You're right.
We were always meant to have each other, whether, so all of the above, a group of safe friends,
yes.
of people that we can be a neighborhood, of caring for each other's families and each other's spirits. And also maybe a coach or a therapist, someone who can help you to mother yourself.
Yep. Well, and we have a pattern.
Or be a mother.
Yeah, we have the pattern. The pattern of the Christ is that, or the Savior is to be that place. And so not that he has to be the one that always does it. I'm saying that's the pattern that's been shown to us. Don't do it alone. You can't do it alone. You need an advocate. You need a support person. And we kind of, this need for independence, or what's the word, like self-reliance. We've kind of overdone that. Self-reliance is not Christ's atonement. That pattern of connection and doing with, I think we can do. That's what we're supposed to be. Come unto me, be like me. We need to be that for each other, or seek that.
And I have to say right now, this is something I've always admired about my own mother, is that she has been a wonderful mother to me. And I have had many friends who have either, their mother died when they were young, or their mother was emotionally unavailable or left, or in some way not there. And I don't have to ask my mom. My mom just adopts them and just fills that role the best way she can. And so, anyway, I just had to give her that shout out because we need that.
Yes.
And I think that my mom got that gift from my heavenly mother.
Yep. That's such a feminine, it's something that I've thought about a lot, like this feminine type of love. Like sometimes I see these arguments, and let's say even in politics, where it's like, there's got to be a rule. We got to figure out where the line is that that you can't cross, and I'm like, that's not feminine. I can do both, and I can love I can love each of my children 150%. I know how to multitask love, or multitask, what if this doesn't have a straight line? What if it's really complicated? I can handle that. I can handle complicated. I think it's a gift females have. And your mom's a perfect example of that. She can handle making sure that this kind of love belongs to her kids, and she can make this person feel 100% too. There's no need to be like, I know, but then my kids will feel, no, she can do it both. And it's a natural thing to her. She doesn't have to pump herself up or psych herself out to make it happen. Like, that's the beauty of feminine love. And sometimes I just want to be like, things would be a little easier if we kind of let women kind of show these guys around a little bit. Like, we have some tools, we have some gifts, we have some abilities that are natural, like that could really help the world, I promise.
Yeah. And I think we can turn it back around and say, even as finite humans, we have the capacity to love Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, and Heavenly Mother. We have enough love. There's no competition here. There doesn't need to be this, well, it's distracting our focus from Heavenly Father. Like, that's like, and I remember my mom saying she had one child, and then when she was about to have her second, she had this fear, like, how am I going to love another baby as much as I love this first baby? And then when the second baby came, she was just like, it just was there. I just had all the love in the world, and there was no competition.
Yeah.
My love multiplied.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but, that's how I feel. I wish other people would recognize that there's not a competition. There's not a limit.
No.
That's great.
Totally.
So our final question is, how has Heavenly Mother changed you?
I think, especially with my interaction with Heavenly Mother, it's helped me really be in connection with those feminine parts of who I am and allow them to be both strong and to be gentle, to be enough, and to be able to vocalize that I am enough and not have to apologize for that enoughness, and that I can hold 100% of my own enoughness and yours and theirs, that there's no need for this competition that somehow we've decided there is, that she really is this fiercely loving person, and I have those within me as well.
That's beautiful. I love that. Opening up to the dualities inside us and embracing both. Thank you so much, Mechelle, for reaching out, for having this conversation. And we will link the Wholeness Network so that our listeners can check it out and find things that help them, especially if trauma has been something that that this conversation around trauma has opened up something for them that they want to explore more. And I just want to encourage everyone to find help in sitting with that hunger. Maybe it's poetry like Mother's Milk.
Yes.
Or works of Carolyn Pearson, or, just a friend. Find someone to sit, or our podcast. We're here for you.
For sure. I know, we're so grateful for your willingness to put it out there. I think that what you're doing is helpful and respectable. I don't think there's anything controversial about it. But we that listen are really grateful that you're willing to put things out there and just ask the questions and just like you're talking about, just sit with it. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been so great.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll share it. And if you haven't yet, please leave us a review. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can make a monthly donation at anchor.fm/inherimage. We hope you'll tune in next Sunday for another inspiring episode.